This is the Capitol Rundown.
I know, did you guys in the media want this so bad? I don't want to drag you along for 2 years and then break your heart.
Now it's adversary. We are the enemy. This is Trump terror, not American terror.
The crime rate actually fell. It didn't increase. Is that correct?
That is correct. Crime is down in Denver. We have homicides down 17%.
It's all straight ahead. The Capitol Rundown starts now. Good morning and thanks for joining us. I'm Siobhan Klepfer. President Donald Trump promised to continue his push for sweeping change in his first address to a joint session of Congress Tuesday night. And following that speech, Democratic Senator Elissa Slotkin of Michigan delivered the response. Washington correspondent Vinay Simlot has a recap of the night.
President Donald Trump's address to Congress was the longest ever, clocking in at 1 hour and 39 minutes. The president talked about his goals, he talked about what he sees as his administration's successes, and even what he sees as President Joe Biden's failures.
America is back.
President Donald Trump delivered his first speech back before a joint, albeit divided, session of Congress.
Take your seat.
Speaker Mike Johnson had Texas Congressman Al Green removed after protests.
Remove this gentleman from the chamber.
President Trump addressed immigration, and February border arrests at their lowest in decades. He recognized the families of 22-year-old Laken Riley and 12-year-old Jocelyn Nungary. Police say they were murdered by people here illegally.
America will never, ever forget our beautiful Laken Hope Riley.
On tariffs.
It's a beautiful word, isn't it? We will take in trillions and trillions of dollars and create jobs like we have never seen before.
Though economists say they'll cost the average family an extra $1,600 a year. President Trump says he's also looking to save through the Department of Government Efficiency.
We'll be ending the flagrant waste of taxpayer dollars.
For weeks, the White House has said Elon Musk is not in charge of Doge, but on Tuesday,
headed by Elon Musk, who is in the gallery tonight.
Senator Elissa Slotkin responded to Musk's push for change in the Democrats' rebuttal.
Change doesn't need to be chaotic or make us less safe.
Some Republican senators from agriculture states said they hope that those tariffs are temporary and used for negotiation and not necessarily permanent, worried about the impact they'll have on farmers. In Washington, I'm Vinay Simlot. Back to you.
Well, as you saw, Senator Slotkin was the Democratic Party's chosen speaker for the response to the president's address. Much of her response focused on economic issues like the rising price of food and other basic necessities. She also talked about national security and Elon Musk getting his hands on America's financial systems through the unofficial Department of Government Efficiency.
We need a tax system that's fair for people who don't happen to make $1 billion. Look, the president talked a big game on the economy, but it's always important to read the fine print. So, do his plans actually help Americans get ahead? Not even close. President Trump is trying to deliver an unprecedented giveaway to his billionaire friends. He's on the hunt to find trillions of dollars to pass along to the wealthiest in America. And to do that, he's going to make you pay in every part of your life.
The senator also responded to President Trump's culture war issues. He mentioned the transgender community multiple times during his address and highlighted his executive order declaring the federal government will only recognize two sexes, male and female. Transgender people make up an estimated 1% of the U.S. population.
But it's also at risk when the president pits Americans against each other, when he demonizes those who are different and tells certain people they shouldn't be included. Because America is not just a patch of land between two oceans. We are more than that. Generations have fought and died to secure the fundamental rights that define us. Those rights and the fight for them make us who we are. We're a nation of strivers, risk takers, innovators, and we are never satisfied. That is America's superpower.
Coming up, we'll have a report on bipartisan efforts to make state government more transparent. Those stories and a lot more coming up on the Capitol Rundown. Welcome back. In Michigan, the governor's office and the legislature are immune from the state's 1977 Freedom of Information Act requests. And Republican Speaker of the House, Matt Hall, says he's not going to take any action to help change that. But two lawmakers, a Democrat and a Republican, are hoping to go around him. Our Capitol correspondent Tim Skubic has the details.
So I'm just telling you right now, we're not going to do it.
Republican Speaker Matt Hall actually voted yes on the Freedom of Information Act at one point. At another point, he also sent a letter to the then Democratic House Speaker Joe Tate asking him to put it up for a vote. Now he is strongly opposed, calling it a low priority. Despite his opposition, he does have the power to simply put it up on the board to let supporters have another chance to pass it. But he even refuses to do that.
Like, I don't want to give the media false hope. Yeah, I know. Did you guys in the media want this so bad? I don't want to drag you along for 2 years and then break your heart.
The Democratic Senator Jeremy Moss on the left and Republican Representative Mark Tisdale, both from Oakland County, will privately meet to see how they could get around the Speaker's opposition and get FOIA into law. Michigan is among a minority of states that does not have one. The Speaker in the House did vote on an ethics reform bill last week, sending it to the Senate. So here's one option. These two could add the FOIA language to that package and then send it back to the House. Or they could link FOIA to Mr. Hall's package, which would mean his measure could not pass unless FOIA passed too. For as long as anybody in this town can remember, this legislation has been stuck in the legislative mud. Way back in November of 2023, Senator Moss was optimistic that the new Democratic control of the legislature would finally get this out of the mud.
Every time I've been on this program, you've been pessimistic about the prospects for this. Now I'm in Senate leadership. Our Senate Majority Leader has flagged this as a priority. So I will invite you to the bill signing.
Well, of course, there never was a bill signing. And unless the two lawmakers can find a way to get around the Speaker, there may not be one for the next 2 years. Here for you in Lansing, Tim Skubic.
Well, the Rundown's Jorma Duran talked to Tim about the effort to bring a FOIA law to Michigan, but first they discussed President Donald Trump's speech to Congress and the reaction.
It's time to get updated politically here in the state of Michigan, and nobody better than this guy right here, Tim Skubic. Tim, on Tuesday night, President Donald Trump gave what many are comparing to a campaign speech. What was in it that should get the attention of Michiganders, and what did you make of Michigan U.S. Senator Elissa Slotkin delivering the response for the Democrats?
Yeah, it was quite a night. He set a record. He beat Bill Clinton's record of 89 minutes for a speech to the joint session of Congress. This one went a little bit longer than that. Yeah. And the stuff about Michigan and the tariffs and the auto industry were very critical. What happened, though, is that what he didn't tell us on Tuesday night is what he did on Wednesday morning, which was to hit the pause button on the tariffs as they relate to the Detroit 3 automakers. But in economies, they always say that uncertainty is bad, that the damage, quote, has already been done by even the specter of tariffs coming up on the sticker shock on the car, on the price of cars. And why Michigan is concerned, let's do the math here. If we're not selling cars, people are not making cars, those people are not paying taxes, you get where I'm going with this? The state coffers then begin to lose money. And if that happens, the trickle-down effect is the state has two options to make up lost money. Raise taxes, not really an option, or two, cut services, which is the way they have to go. Now, Ms. Slotkin, freshman senator, talk about being on the stage. And, you know, giving the response to whomever the president is a thankless job. First of all, they had 90 minutes and you get about 7 or 8. So she packed a lot in there. She basically said that we have to work together. And I thought it was pretty brilliant on her part to point out that she was speaking from Wyandotte to make the point that the voters can make choices. The voters in Wyandotte voted for Mr. Trump. Then they turned around and voted for Democrat Elissa Slotkin. And she basically says, you know what? That's fine. That's the way it's supposed to be. Voters get a choice. So she obviously didn't like everything that Mr. Trump said vis-a-vis the tariffs and the like. She said we can do better. Let's try to do better. And she got pretty good marks for her performance.
Well, Tim, we just watched your report on the bipartisan effort to get something done with the FOIA law. What odds do you give it being successful this time?
Well, the major roadblock continues to be House Speaker Matt Hall, who has said thanks but no thanks. If you put it up for a vote in the House, they say this thing would pass. If you put it up for a vote in the Senate, it would pass. All we need to do is figure out how to get around Mr. Hall, get it up for a vote, and we'll have FOIA. Michigan is among just a couple of states that doesn't have it. And people ask, all right, so what? Why do we need freedom of information? If there is any wrongdoing or shenanigans going on, if reporters and other groups can get the information from these internal communications through FOIA, they can find out if there's some wrongdoing. So it's an accountability issue, but right now there is none.
Well, coming up, the mayors of several big cities testified before Congress this week and were grilled by House Republicans on working with immigration officials. That's just ahead on the Capitol Rundown. Welcome back. On Wednesday, mayors of major cities testified on Capitol Hill about their so-called sanctuary city policies. Republicans say these policies hurt public safety, while Democrats and the mayors defended their cities. Our Washington correspondent Maddie Biertemple has the highlights from the hearing.
He'll never be here to raise his daughter.
Republicans say sanctuary city policies have deadly consequences.
Lincoln Riley, Ruby Garcia, Rachel Morin.
Mayors of some of those cities pushed back Wednesday, including Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson.
Sensationalizing tragedy in the name of political expediency is not governing. It's grandstanding.
Johnson and mayors from New York, Denver, and Boston testified that their sanctuary city policies do not make people less safe. Denver's Mayor Mike Johnston says the opposite has happened.
The crime rate actually fell. It didn't increase. Is that correct?
That is correct. Crime is down in Denver. We have homicides down 17%.
But Republicans say sanctuary policies protect criminals and undermine the president's priorities.
Sanctuary cities make us all less safe and are a public safety nightmare.
Colorado Congresswoman Lauren Boebert pressed Mayor Johnston about a policy that she says hinders local police cooperation with federal authorities when there's not a warrant.
We wouldn't have a reason to coordinate.
Because you don't know if they're illegal, because you are unable to coordinate until there's a warrant. So that's why this ordinance needs to be repealed.
New York City Mayor Eric Adams has previously said he's willing to work with ICE.
New York City will always comply with city, state, and federal laws.
Adams denied that his cooperation is an attempt to avoid federal corruption charges.
No quid pro quo, and I did nothing wrong.
In Washington, I'm Maddie Biertemple.
Well, some Republican lawmakers and the president have suggested cutting off federal funding for sanctuary cities, and the president has also threatened legal action. And in Michigan, state Republicans have already made moves against so-called sanctuary cities. House Rule 19 prohibits any state funding outside of normal budgetary spending from going to a county, city, village, or township that has a policy in place to not cooperate with ICE. Republicans say they want to discourage what they call rogue behavior by local governments. Democrats argue it's just an attempt by Speaker Hall to control which cities get funding using immigration as an excuse. According to the Center for Immigration Studies, Michigan has only one city officially designated as a sanctuary city, Lansing, and a handful of counties such as Kalamazoo, Washtenaw, and Kent. Coming up, we're taking a closer look at how tariffs will be felt here in Michigan with a report from across the Detroit River. Stay tuned. President Trump is granting a one-month exemption on tariffs on imports from Mexico and Canada for U.S. automakers. Lana Zach visited a Canadian company just across the Detroit River that's being impacted on both sides of the border.
Just a few miles from the Michigan border, Canada's Laval International supplies molds for parts used by every car manufacturer in the U.S.
There's where the hood would be. The front.
So you've got a left and a right fender and that one piece of steel.
Jonathan Azapati runs the family business. He says he's dealt with tariffs before, but this time it's different.
Now it's adversarial. We are the enemy. This is Trump tariffs, not American tariffs.
Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau hit back at President Trump Tuesday as he announced 25% counter tariffs.
Now, it's not in my habit to agree with the Wall Street Journal, but Donald, they point out that even though you're a very smart guy, this is a very dumb thing to do.
The tariffs and counter tariffs are hitting Azapati hard. His goods take multiple trips across the U.S.-Canadian border, starting with the steel that he imports from Pennsylvania.
We need product from the United States. They need product from Canada. We take that product, we build it, we add value to it by it crossing back and forth across the border to ultimately make its way into the United States. That will make parts that will go on vehicles that will be sold in the United States and Canada that will ultimately make its way into our houses and our homes.
He worries each way he'll be taxed, and it's this interconnected supply chain that makes American auto factories especially vulnerable. Right now, the price of a new car averages about $48,000, but these tariffs could raise prices on cars by about $5,900. And the auto industry fears it cannot sustain these tariffs for long. Here's Ford CEO speaking at a conference last month.
Let's be real honest. Long term, a 25% tariff across the Mexico and Canadian border will blow a hole in the U.S. industry that we have never seen.
To give you a sense of the real uncertainty of things, business owners are still planning for a new tariff of 25% to go into effect on aluminum and steel products, and that is expected to happen on March 12th. Lana Zach, CBS News, Windsor, Ontario.
Up next, we'll tell you what buildings in Michigan could be on the federal chopping block. We'll be right back. Welcome back. On Wednesday, the Federal General Services Administration posted a list of properties considered non-core properties. That means they're not considered to be essential to government operations, and that includes several here in Michigan. That list was posted and deleted in the same day, but it can still be seen on the Internet's Wayback Machine archive. Most of those listed for our state were facilities associated with the Hart Dole Inouye Federal Center in Battle Creek. About 1,500 people work there as part of the U.S. Department of Defense's Logistics Agency, as well as the Department of Homeland Security. Now, besides the Battle Creek facility, properties connected to the Rosa Parks Federal Building in Detroit were listed, as was a Social Security Administration building in Saginaw. As of this recording, the GSA's list has not been reposted. And that's our show for this week. Thank you so much for watching the Capitol Rundown. We will see you all again right here next week.